Hi, my name is Dale Mazzarella. I'm a Fly Fishers International Master Casting Instructor, a longtime Wyoming fishing guide, and an award-winning coach and educator. I've put together this video series that I hope will help you become a better fisherman, catch a lot more fish, and I hope you enjoy it. So enjoy yourself, have a good time, and let me know what you think. We're going to go through the quick cast right now, which is a cast developed to get to a fish as quickly as possible, especially a moving fish. This cast is, I think, really hard to learn to do all of the things that you need to do in different situations. I mean, you've got to be able to haul, you've got to be able to cast off the opposite shoulder, you have to be able to shoot line. There's a lot of things you have to be able to do in order to make this cast work. It even helps if you're going to go long distances quickly to be able to shoot line in the back and then again in the front. So accuracy, line speed, different directions, all those kinds of skills are important in order to be able to do a quick cast quickly. What I want to do right now is really quickly, before I go out farther so you can see it more holistically, I like to take just a second to discuss how you hold a fly when you're doing this quick casting. So we're going to zoom in on nothing but my hand and my rod handle, and you're going to be able to see how you hold a fly. So when we refer to that later in the video, you'll know what I'm talking about, and you can come back and review this if you need to. This just happens to be one of my favorite little shrimp patterns that I use here in Tampa Bay for redfish. But what I want to point out is when you grab this fly, when I tell you on this video that you need to hold it in the back by the tail, this is because the line is going to be here and it's going to pull it out. So you need to make sure that you hold it by the tail, or if you don't have a tail, you need to hold it by the bend of the hook. But make sure that this is how you're doing it. Now, the way a lot of people do it is they hold it in their non-casting arm, and then we'll show you like this, and then swing it. What I do, and you won't be able to see this close up, so I'm going to do it now. What I do is I pinch it right here. I don't know, I hope you can see that. I pinch it right there by the tail, and if I don't have a tail, I'll pinch it by the bend of the hook. Now when I swing it, the fly comes out and it doesn't hook me. So this is a very important, critical thing. And I'm pretty much a barbless hook fanatic, so I think it penetrates fish better, and if you're playing them right, you won't lose too many. So consider how you're going to hold your fly. That's an important thing so you don't get stuck. So we're going to talk about if you're on a boat first, a flats boat, and you're out fishing for bonefish in the Bahamas or something. The first thing I tell people is, hey, make really sure you've got sunglasses on and a hat, that you got your sunscreen, that whenever you get back from that day, you don't have injuries to yourself. The other thing is check the boat. Make sure you know where people are, where things on the deck are. Just make sure that you know where all the potential problems lie. And the last thing, I personally take my shoes off so I can feel the line if it gets under my feet. Now, many guides will have a big bucket you can strip your line into, but sometimes you just can't have a big bucket and you're going to have to just deal with it. So we're going to talk about clearing the line and then restacking it. But in the meantime, let's just talk about the first kinds of things you got to get straightened out with your guide or your partner or whoever. I'm going to play like you're at my 12 o'clock. In other words, the front of the boat, the just exact front of the boat is facing you. That's 12 o'clock. So you're going to ask the guide, tell me what you think your directions are. So he says 11 o'clock. If this is 12, this is 11, 10, and 9. This is 12, 1, 2, and 3. So make sure you know the directions. Some guides, remember, they're 10, 15 feet behind you. If they're 15 feet behind you, they may consider straight at right angles to them 3 o'clock, which means, or 9 o'clock in this case. That's not 9 o'clock. For you, that's 8 o'clock. So make sure you know that. The second thing, cast out some line and have him dictate how much distance he thinks that is. Because I can tell you from experience that there's a big difference between what one person calls 40 feet and another person calls 40 feet. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you get on a boat is make sure that you understand what the guide's interpretation of distance and direction. Those are the two most important things you need to do. So now what we're going to do is put a line on and go through what do you do once you've decided you've got all those things squared away. So now you've taken care of all the preliminaries. Now we're going to get down to actually preparing to go catch a fish. So what we're going to do is first off, we're going to ask the guide how much line are we going to probably need in order to catch fish today. And part of it's going to depend on how much you can cast, how fast you can cast, how far you can cast, how accurately you can cast. But the guide will tell you, oh, we probably won't ever see a fish more than 50 feet away or 60 feet or whatever. So the next thing you're going to do is clear your line. So what you need to do is, like right now, you can see, I don't know if you can't see that ribbon yet, but I've got a wind coming into this shoulder. So what I would do is clearing line means you're going to strip your line off the reel and put it at your feet. In this particular case, I would put it just to the left and in front. So if it blows into my foot and it doesn't go off the boat. You can also stick it in a boat well. You could use a strip basket. You can use it out a lot of different things. So I'm going to strip off what I think is, let's say, 50 feet to start with. Then I'm going to clear it. So I've cleared about, probably, it's not quite 50 feet. So the guide will say, oh, a little bit more, a little bit more. So you strip it down, put it down. So you're going to stack it. So that's clear casting. You've cleared the line. So now you can stack it in the same order that it's going to get into the rod, so you don't tangle it. So the stuff that's going to go through the rod first is on top. So I'm going to pull it back. So now I've got myself pulled back. Now, how do you hold the fly? At this point in time, we're going to still stay close up, and then we'll get to the farther shot in a second. But what we're going to do is we're going to pull the fly back once I've got about a rod length or a rod and a half length of fly line. And for people who are just starting, probably you don't want to have too much because it's hard to handle. But you could pull it out. So I've got about a rod and a half length of fly line. And typically the best way to hold this, for beginners especially, is to put this fly right here between these fingers, just like we talked about in that close-up, and you're right here. So now you're just going to be standing there getting ready. When that guide says fish 11 o'clock, 50 feet, you point at 11 o'clock. From then on, you don't ever take your eye off of that spot. And if he says left to right, you're kind of looking for any kind of a shape that's going for left to right. If it's not going very fast, then you know 11 is going to pretty quickly be 12. So anticipate that. So you're going to be here. Now, you've decided, you know where your direction is, you've verified it with the guide, you pretty much have already determined how far it is. So now you're going to get ready to do your cast. And what you're going to do is you're going to swing your fly out right here. Get it away from you. So swing this thing away from you like this. So just swing it away. Fly in this hand, opposite of your casting shoulder. Swing it, and you can see how far away that thing gets from me. That way it doesn't hit the guide and it doesn't hit me. That's pretty much what you have to do. Sometimes, depending on the wind, you may have to swing it this way and do the same thing, especially if a fish is on this side of you to my right. So you'll have to just adjust with that and play with it and practice it in a park someplace before you get out on the water and waste $600. You'll notice we're going to do this whole cast now and play like there's a fish out there at that orange cone on your far left. You can see I've got a bit of a wind and it's kind of gusting here and there, but that wind is blowing basically into me. And again, I've chosen to use the wind against me because that's a much more difficult situation. Sometimes it's even blowing into my right shoulder a little bit, which makes it the worst combination. Right here, it's kind of coming into my left, but I'm going to kind of think about where I feel it to make some slight adjustments. And the more you practice in the wind, the better off you're going to be. So here we go. Guide says fish, and let's say he says fish 11 o'clock. So I'm going to point. He says yeah, and he says 60 feet, which is about where that cone is. So all I'm going to do now is swing it out and grab the fly line. Something I forgot to tell you in a previous clip. Swing it out and then grab the fly line with your left hand. Now you're ready to cast. So let's do that again. Hold the fly properly. Line yourself up where you're supposed to be with the fish. Guide says 11 o'clock, 60 feet. Swing it. There we go. So in a couple of false casts, you're out to 60 feet at 11 o'clock. Restrip it if you need to, or if you've missed it and the guide says you're behind him, that's pretty common. So you're way out there and the guide says you're behind him. You need to go farther right and you need to go 5 more feet. If you can pick this thing up, this is where picking up a lot of line helps. Now I've gone 5 more feet and I've gone quickly. So those are important factors. So practice picking up a lot of line. Here I'm picking up 50 feet of line, changing direction to 10 o'clock. And I'm straightening that fly out pretty good right into the wind. So this is the kind of stuff you want to do. Now you're at 10 o'clock and the guide says, oh man, fish, 2 o'clock. Pick it up, maybe make 1 false cast and he says 40 feet. Close down your cast and right there's your cast. So you need to practice all these scenarios. You might even have somebody come out and do it for you. Have somebody yell at you, stand behind you, play like they're in a boat. And if you're going to spend a lot of money on a trip to the Bahamas or someplace to go fly fishing off a skiff, boy, I tell you, this is a super drill to do. Now we're going to talk about what do you do when you're wading and you're wading a flat and you're going to do the same thing, but you don't have the advantage of a height of a boat. And it's a little more difficult because you got to deal with the water around you. So let's assume we're in water, maybe, knee deep or so. So what we're going to do is go ahead and strip back our line. And I've got a lot of line out. I've got 60 feet of line. You typically, when you're wading, you're not going to have 60 feet. You're probably going to have 40 feet, maybe 50 feet. In most conditions, I know in Tampa Bay, we're not going to see fish 60 or 70 feet away a lot of times. So it just depends on your situation, but let's assume you've got to go 60 feet, but I practice this at much shorter distances to start with. So what you're going to do is clear your line. Now you're going to bring it back, and I always bring mine back again, probably about 1 to 1.5 times the distance of the rod length over my rod versus my fly line length. So, and what I do here is like we talked about in that close-up, I pinch the fly between my right forefinger here and the cork. So that's how I'm going to hold this fly for right now. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a big loop. So I've doubled my fly line, the part that's closest to my reel, and I'm going to hook it right underneath my little finger. Right here. So I'm going to hook it under my little finger on my rod hand. Then I'm going to take one more loop and I'm hold it here. So now I've got this situation right here. When I see a fish, I'm going to throw this and drop this. So I just throw that and drop this. Now I grab my line and make my shot. So if I wanted to go farther, I'd have to have, in that particular case, and see I've got a little curl here, so I needed to I didn't clear my line completely on that previous cast. So here, okay, now I've cleared it pretty good. So I'm going to do the same thing again. Clear it, get it down here. When I get my fly to about 25 feet, which is that first cone there, to my left, I'm going to put the fly in my hand. And I'm going to put it on the right side of my body, the line and everything on the right side of my body. And of course, if you're left-handed, you'll have to reverse it. I put the fly into here, pinch it here, pull a big loop so it's almost in the water. Pinch it with my little finger. Another big loop. And hold it here. So now, fish, throw it. That's going to keep it away and keep it from tangling. Drop it. Just drop this fly line right there. Now grab here. Now what you're going to do is swing your fly. And there's your cast. So let's show the whole thing so you can see the whole thing. Hey, I'm walking along, I see a fish, let's say at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock, throw my line, drop my line, 1, 2, 3. That's the quick cast. So in a couple of false casts, I'm out to 65 feet or so. That's the way to do this, and you guys got to practice. It's not easy to do, especially when you got a guide yelling at you, you got a fish flying around, you know, you got wind blowing, and your partner's watching. This is pretty easy to get buck fever and screw it up. So the more times you practice on the grass, the better chance you're going to have of actually doing this when it counts.